Hello. Hi, how are you doing? This is AD from Silverlight Studio and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be continuing our How to Java series. And if you watched my last video, then we made a calculator in Java that could add and subtract two numbers. And today we are going to continue with that and we are going to expand it to be able to multiply, divide, and right now, our calculator does everything. It adds numbers, it subtracts them, but we want a way to be able to choose what we want to do, to add them, to subtract them, or multiply them, or divide them. So that's the goal for today. And as always, I haven't made a script for this video because I think it's best to do it like this because I will make errors and it's kind of you learning with me because I'm also learning how to do it. And so without further ado, let's begin our coding for today. So one thing I forgot to mention that I will try to put the code from the last video in the description of this video so that if you want to try it yourself, you can just download the file and you will have this already and you can just start adding a way to multiply, divide, or whatever you want to do. So I will try to leave a link to download the code from the last video, which is this one here. This is the code from last video, what we did in the last video, and I will try to put a link in the description. So let's begin. So first of all, we want to add a way to multiply two numbers. That's really simple. Like we have the methods here for sum, public int sum, which gives us the sum of two integers. The integers are inputs, and we save them in a variable called res, which is also of type integer, and res is just the sum of a and b, and we return that. Sub is for subtraction. It works pretty much the same, two integers as inputs, but here we check whichever integer is greater, we subtract the other one from it. So if a is greater than b, then we do a minus b. If b is greater than a, then we do b minus a. So let's go ahead and look at our list. We have, first of all, a way to multiply. We have to add a way to multiply two numbers. So we're going to go ahead and write public int. Let's name it mul for multiply. Public int mul integer a, integer b. Public, so that this method is accessible from basically, let's say, anywhere for now. Integer, because when we do the multiplication of two integers, we always get the integer back. So since we are getting integer back, we will tell the compiler that this method gives us an integer back. Similar to sum, similar to sub, whatever the method is giving you back, like the sum is giving back res, and res is of type integer. So we write public int. If we were getting a decimal value, let's say we get a double value, which is a decimal value, then we'll write here public double sum. But since when you add two numbers, when you add two integers, you always get an integer, so we'll write public int sum. And same for sub and same for mul, because we're going to be multiplying two integers, and the result of a multiplication of two integers is always an integer. So let's go ahead and open this method with our curly brackets. Let's use our result variable res is equal to the product of a times b. Then we just go ahead and return res. And that's it. Pretty simple, but it does the job. Again, public int mul is the method to multiply two integers. Public to be accessible from anywhere. Integer, because when you multiply two integers, you get an integer. Mul is the name of the method. Integer a is the input parameter, same as integer b, and res is our result variable, which is meant to store the output. So let's go ahead and save that, and let's switch to our command prompt And let's try and compile this. So it's in how to Java folder. So we need to navigate to that. I'll just go ahead and make that small so that we also have the code. If we made some errors, we can quickly correct it. There we go. A little bit more to the side. Doesn't want to do that. We just put here, and there we go. Okay. So we want to navigate to the C drive first of all. So we write cd c. cd is the command to navigate. Whenever you want to switch to another folder, you write cd followed by the name of the folder or the name of the drive. Since we want to move to the C drive, we'll do cd c colon and then backslash. This brings us to the C drive. We write dir to list all the folders that are in our current directory, and to open the folder that we need, which is this one here, we simply write cd again followed by the name of the folder, how to Java. There we go. Now we're inside how to Java, and you can see there's our calculator and also our hello.java file, which we made in the first video. This is the code. This was the code for hello. Very, very, very basic. But hey, everybody needs to start somewhere. So let's go ahead and compile our calculator to see if we have made any errors. So we write java c to call the Java compiler, followed by the name of the file, which is calculator.java. Wow. Looks like we haven't made any errors, which is pretty good. This pretty much means that our multiplication method is okay, but we still need a way to print our multiplication method. So we're going to go ahead and write, similar to addition and subtraction, we're going to write system. I can just copy that, so let me just copy that. And we'll write here multiplication result. And to show, or first of all store the result of the multiplication, we need another variable. Right, int out3 is equal to 0, and this is stores the result of multiplication. There we go. So we have res. I went through this in the last video. Res, we can also use any variable. We can also use res again, but it's simpler for now to define another variable and to store the result of addition, subtraction, or multiplication in that variable, like we are doing for out. We're using out to store the sum of two integers which we input. So we write out is equal to calculator. We create an object of type calculator, and we do dot sum c and d. Similarly, we'll do here out3, which is our new variable. We'll call calculator dot mul c and d. This calculator cal comes from this line, which means that we need to create an object before we call these methods. These methods, sum, sub, and mul, as you see, they're all instance methods. That means they are not static like our main method. And every instance method needs an object to work on. And with this line, we are creating the object. That's why we do here out3 is equal to cal, which is our calculator. As you can see, calculator cal is a object of type calculator. And with the help of this calculator cal, we can call the multiplication method on our two variables. Now we also need to print that. So we go ahead, system.out.println, and we just print out out3. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's try to compile this again. It works. Let's try to run this now. To run, you just write the name of the class. Let's do 4 times 3. Let's enter 4, let's enter 3, and there we go. Multiplication result is 12. So multiplication works fine. Now, let's move on to the next part, which is division. Now we want to divide two integers. So we'll go ahead, write public int, same as all the other methods, public int. Let's name it div, and let's add in the inputs, integer a, integer b, and let's open our method. When it comes to division, we need to check one thing, that we are not dividing by 0. As you know, if you divide something by 0, it basically means a garbage value. If you try to do it here, it will lead to an error if you try to divide something by 0. So now we need to check if one of our integers is 0. We can do a divided by b, or we can also do b divided by a. That doesn't really make a difference, but the denominator, for example, if you're doing, just let me go ahead and write that here. If we are doing a divided by b, then we need to make sure that b is not equal to 0. If we try and divide by 0, we will get an error, so we need to avoid that. So to check if our integer b is 0, we'll just go ahead and simply write if b is equal to 0, just go ahead and print that division with 0 is not possible. So we'll go ahead and write system.out.println, and we'll write division by 0 not possible. Not possible. So there we go. Now this line, it checks if b is equal to 0, and if b is indeed 0, then we just print out system.out.println division by 0 is not possible, and in that case we will just return null, which basically means nothing. So if b is not equal to 0, then we actually want to divide a by b. So we go ahead and write else, which means if b is not equal to 0, what we'll do is we will divide a by b, and we will return the result, which is stored in our res variable. So we go ahead and close this. And that's our method to divide two numbers. Let's go ahead and test that. It's always good practice to test your code even after making small changes. Like this method is not that long, but it still is good to keep testing your code, because if you do it in smaller parts, if you write a few lines of code and then test it and you get an error, then it's very easy for you to know, okay, I wrote only a few lines, instead of writing a whole program and then you go to compile it and you get hundreds of errors, and then you can't find which error is, and everything's very confusing. So what I like to do is I like to compile even after making very, very small changes. So let's go ahead and let's try and compile. Oh, we did make an error. Calculator.java 37. 37 means the line number where the error is. And Java basically tells you what the error was. Like here it says expected. It expects a semicolon at the end, which we forgot. So we'll just go ahead and add that. And we'll run our code once again. Oh. We have two errors now. Let's go over them one by one. First of all, we have if b is equal to 0. To check if b is equal to 0, we need to write equal to 2 times. Writing just writing b equals 0 doesn't work inside if statements. If you want to assign 0 to b, you write b equals 0. If you want to check if b is 0, then you write b equals 0, which basically checks if b is 0. So b equals 0 is assignment. You assign 0 to b, and b equals 0 means that you're checking if the integer b is 0. So, and the next error here says that null, which we wrote earlier, is not from type integer. So we'll just go ahead and write break. Let's go ahead and compile that again. Okay. Break can only be used inside switch or loop. We haven't done switches or loops yet, but it just basically means that we cannot use break here, and we can also not use return null because this null is not from type integer, and this method, it is supposed to give us an integer back. And since null is not of type integer, it leads to an error. So we'll just go ahead and remove that. Our code is fine without it. If b is equal to 0, then we just get an error message, and it does not do the multiplication because the multiplication only happens when b is not equal to 0. So let's go ahead and compile this now. We're missing a return statement. So this error, missing return statement, just means that this method has to return something. Since we remove this line, if b is equal to 0, then it just prints out division by 0 is not possible. But according to the definition of the method public int, it has to give an integer back. If it does not give an integer back, then we get this error. So let's just go ahead and return b. So what will happen is we check if b is equal to 0, and if b is indeed equal to 0, we go ahead and print division by 0 is not possible, and we just return b, which is 0. So we will get 0 as our division result, along with exactly, we'll just get 0 along with our error message, division by 0 is not possible. So let's go ahead and save that again, and let's compile this. There we go. And now let's try running this. Let's try to divide by 0. Let's enter 5 and let's enter 0. So I found out the reason why we're not getting this error message even when we try to divide by 0. And the simple answer is we haven't even done the division. We never added a way to print out the result of division. So we just go ahead and do that. To do that, we'll just define another variable. Let's name it out4. Let's initialize it with 0. And it is meant to store the result of division. So we'll now use out for to divide C and D. C and D. And we'll then go ahead and print our result, and let's also add a line saying division. Oh, we don't want to do that. Let's go ahead and add a line to just basically say division result. Division result. There we go. Let's go ahead and compile. That compiles. And let's try dividing by 0 again. So we go, let's try dividing 8 by 0. There we go. Division result. Division by 0, not possible. And we get 0 back. So now we have a way to multiply and divide. We're going to move to the last step of our calculator, which is entering, which is a way to enter choice, which is a way to enter user's choice to either add, subtract, multiply, or divide these two numbers. To do that, we will use our scanner again. If you don't know what scanner is, then I would highly suggest you watching my last video. I went over what scanner is, how we import it, and what it actually does. For now, we're just going to use it. So we go ahead and we're going to write system.out.println. Please enter your choice. And what choices do we have? Well, let's say, go ahead and copy that. And let's just say, if you type 1, you can add. If you type 2, you can subtract. And if you type 3, you can multiply the numbers. And 4 will be for dividing the said numbers. So go ahead and write 4 for the division of these numbers. So now to store the result of our choice, we need a variable. Int C is using scanner to store the first number, which is this here. Int D is meant to use scanner to store the second number, which is this one here. Now we need another variable to store our choice, that being either 1, 2, 3, or 4. So let's go ahead and define another variable. Let's name it H. And H will just read and store the next integer that we type in. There we go. Let's go ahead and test that. Wonderful. You have no errors till now. Now we're going to do something new, and we're going to use something called switch. Well, as the name suggests, it's used to switch between different cases. What are different cases? Well, if you write 1, then it's the case to add 2 numbers. If you write 2, then it's the case to subtract these numbers. If you write 3, then it's the case to multiply. If you write 4, then it's the case to divide 2 numbers. So we're going to write switch, and switch depending on what? Switch depending on H. So if we write H is equal to 1, then the compiler will go to switch and it will look what's H. Since H is 1, it will do addition. So we go ahead and we're going to open our switch, and we're gonna write case like this. We're gonna write it small, case 1. And what is case 1? Well, case 1 is the addition of two numbers. So we go ahead and we write our code inside. We write our code for adding two numbers, or our call for adding two numbers inside case 1. And if we only want to do one thing, which is add two numbers, then we just type in 1, and then it will execute the call for our sum method, and it will add these two numbers. And to finish it, we'll just write break. What does break do? Break ends this switch, so it does not go into case number 2. What happens is when you use switch, and for example, we put in h is equal to 1, the compiler will check case 1, and it will do everything which is inside case 1, which is these 3 lines here. And then it sees break. That means, okay, we are finished with a case. We don't need to execute other cases because we entered h as 1. So we just type in break. Now let's go ahead and write the cases. As I said, for our subtraction, multiplication, and division. Pretty simple. We just put in the code to subtract two numbers inside case 2. You don't need to have it exactly like this. You can this does nothing, but I like keeping it like this because it looks nicer. Let's say it that way. It looks nicer. So that is our case 2, and case 2 contains the code or the call to subtract C and D. Let's go ahead and define case 3. And case 3 is multiplication. You can leave these print statements out 3, out 4 where they are. You don't need to shift them below case, but I'm just doing it because to me it looks nicer. Let's put it that way. We go ahead, and case 3 is our multiplication. So now for our last case, we'll just go ahead and write case 4. And case 4 is our division. So we just go ahead and shift this to the right so it looks tidy. And we'll write break here, and we'll write break here. And now we're going to close our switch statement with the curly brackets. There we go. Let's go ahead and save that. Again, we are using H to store our choice. We use scanner to read the input that we give here, and that is stored in H. And depending on what H is, it either goes to case 1, which is adding two numbers, it goes to case 2, which is the difference of these numbers, it goes to case 3, which is the product, and case 4, which is the division result of these numbers. So again, switch is used to switch between these 4 cases. And what does switch depend on? In our case, it depends on what h is. If h is 1, we do sum. If 2, then subtract. 3, then multiply. 4, then do divide. So let's go ahead and run that, or compile that. Well, it looks like we did not make any errors. And let's go ahead and test our calculator. Well, let's go and enter what we want to do. Let's do 9 divided by 3. So enter the first number. We are right here in our code, and it is using scanner, as I said, to read this 9. The scanner system.in, scanner sc1 is equal to new scanner system.in. Scanner, as the name says, it scans what we input, and C is a variable which is using this scanner named sc1 to store the next integer. And now we are at the second number. And integer d is doing the same. It's using the scanner SC1 to read the next integer. Just go ahead and press enter. And now we get to our choice. Now we are here in our code, and we are once again using another integer, which is now h, with the help of our scanner SC1 to read the next integer. And to use scanner, don't forget to import scanner with the help of this line at the very, very, very top of your program. Since we have already done that, we can just go ahead and enter 4 to divide 9 by 3. We get a division result as 0, which is unexpected. That means we have indeed made an error in our division. Let me go ahead and just take a quick look at that. Well, I found out what the error was. The error is in our case 4. If you remember, we are using out4 to store the result of the division, and I made a mistake, and instead of printing out out4, I just print out out3 again. So let's go ahead and do out4. Now it should give us 3 back. Let's run our code again. Let's input 9 divided by 3. Let's divide them, and we get 3 back. So we made a small error. I was just printing out 3 again. And there we go. That's our calculator, which can add, subtract, multiply, or divide, depending upon the choice of the user, 2 integers. Again, I would suggest you to watch the first 2 videos, because in the first video I went over how to install Java and how to basically get started, and we wrote this program, hello.java. In the second video, we went over things like scanner, what they do, how to import them, and what they are, and we wrote the methods sum and sub. In this video, I would like you to remember that this switch statement will come in very, very handy. Not for this calculator, but generally when you're programming, you'll be using this a lot. And again, switch is used to switch between different cases. These are our different cases: case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. And they don't have to be integers. You can also switch case A. But since we are using an integer, we will go ahead and do case 1. But you can use anything inside switch. But since h is an integer, and we are inputting 1, 2, 3, and 4, so we write 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's it. I hope you found this video interesting, or at least learned something from it. And as I said, I will try to put in the code from my last video in the description, so that you can go ahead and try it for yourself. And if you have any suggestions or any comments, be sure to put them down in the comment section below. And if you have any questions, just put them down in the comments. I will do my best to answer each and every one of them. That was all I wrote. This was AD from Silverlight Studio. Have a nice day. Till next time.